So what we haven't managed to do in our previous live stream was actually dial some shots in and see if we can sort of transfer some of the knowledge we have as to what this all means. So today I'm hoping to do two profiles, Allongé and Adaptive, and I'll do a quick little explanation of the curves up there. Before we do, we got two quick little demos. So the first is basically two coders. We're showing you what we've got done. So it's a quite small feature here. You can go over there maybe. I don't push you off stage. So new feature. It's always a bit. It is not what is there. It is. No. I tapped this and it isn't happening. Oh, there it is now. Good. Good. Update automatically. So that's a new feature. It's not that exciting. It updates the app automatically. And the way it works is at 3 a.m. if your D1 is cold, it'll check to see if there's an upgrade. If there is for the app, it'll download the update. It won't interrupt your app. It will just save it ready. So the next time you go to settings and hit OK, it'll apply it and ask you to run the app again. And now you've got the latest app. So not that exciting, but it does work. This keep scale on thing is also new, and that's the other feature I'm going to show. So there's new workflow for how the scale is used with the D1. So most of you use a scale with a battery, and what that means is when you put the D1 to sleep, the connection between the D1 and the scale is still there, and the battery is slowly draining. Most batteries last about 24 hours, so that's not great. And the way a lot of you work around that is by powering off the scale while it's connected, which then can cause Bluetooth problems because now there's this device that's disconnected and that Android doesn't know what to do with it. Anyway, long story short, there's a new way and it's better. And the default now is when you connect your scale to the D1, when you put the D1 to sleep, it's going to disconnect from the scale. And if you've got a decent scale, so either the big full height decent scale or the about to come out half decent scale, it'll actually just power it off. If you don't have one of those, no problem. It'll disconnect the Bluetooth and then your scale is just going to power off because it's disconnected from a device. It has some sort of timeout. So just to show you how that works, it's pretty simple. You hit sleep. So let's go this camera here so you can see the scale. And if I hit sleep, the scale is now turned off. And I turn it back on, the scale is not on, and I just power it on. So that's the new workflow. And this is going to reconnect automatically, I hope. Okay, and so there's the weight. And so once again, you put it to sleep and the scale gets turned off automatically. In the morning when you go to make coffee, you go, oh wait, I need to use the scale. Okay, and there you are. Something I'll just mention, just a few hours ago, I made it so you don't have to tap reconnect anymore. So this is yesterday's version because I didn't want to risk putting the absolute live thing on there. So that's the new workflow. And if you are plugging your scale in, so you don't want that to happen, you go to Settings, App, Miscellaneous, and there's a button there that says Keep Scale On. So I hope what that means is all of you now who have scales, the scales will last a month. This is also going to get rid of a really annoying failure mode. So some of you would do this thing that caused problems. I'll just describe it. And the thing that caused problem is that you would make your espresso, you're all ready, you're all done, and then you would power off the scale, hit flush, and then you would find the app is hung. And the reason the app is hung is because the Bluetooth connection between the tablet and the scale has been interrupted. You turn the scale off, but the tablet doesn't know that. Android would take up to 60 seconds to try and retry until it gave up on the scale, clogging up Bluetooth and meaning that the tablet couldn't talk to the D1 over Bluetooth either. So that was super annoying. A lot of people would say my app is hung, you know, the app is really crashy. But really what it was is if you turn the scale off and then you try to use the D1 immediately afterwards, you're going to have Bluetooth problems. So that was a major reason why I wanted this new workflow where at the end of making your coffee, you make the D1 go to sleep and your scale's off and you're good. So, and then the other thing we want to talk about is the dosing assistant. So you want to flip back to that?
Yes.
So I think when I don't know.
Yep, it's on the screen.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's something to look at least. So the dosing assistant is an app for decent scales, the half decent scale and the full height one. It is a free app. When you log into our support, you'll see a decent scale button, and this is the third one. There's a couple things that are new. One is it works much better. That's new. The sound feedback we can't demo because it turns out if you're casting to here, the sound gets muted. But is it the case now that as you hit your goal weight, you get a happy little sound?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so imagine a happy little sound when the thing turns green. So Mark, you want to do a quick demo? Let's do 18-gram bean doses. And why don't you man the tablet and I'll be the pouring monkey. All right, so what he's doing is he has saved a preset. So we're looking for an 18-gram target. We'll tolerate 17 to 19 grams. It's not awesome, but there we go. I am gonna put a cup on there and he's gonna hit start. He's connecting to the scale.
Oh, so it's connected. Yep, we can see the live reading. Yep.
Okay. And did we do, so I can see it's on 4 grams. So did we do something wrong and it didn't tear for the vessel?
We haven't done that yet.
Okay, so you're gonna hit start?
I'm gonna hit start.
Aha!
Yes.
Container weight.
So we set the container weight by clicking the button.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means it knows the weight of the paper cup?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'm gonna, and now imagine a happy little sound. All right, so there we are, green.
Yes.
Okay, we're ready to go. And you're gonna take that off, and I'm gonna put that there. Okay. Do I need to tear at this point if it's slightly off because my vessels are different?
You can, I would suggest to tear that again.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've just pressed the tear button to make that happen. Okay, so the idea here is these are the beans. We're going to make some coffees in just a second. So here we are. I know this is super exciting. This is like watching paint dry. All right, I'm going to do 4 because I'm hoping that's all we need. I'm hoping that we dial this in pretty quickly. These beans are from Livestream in Bordeaux, France. And did I just screw things up by lifting it off?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
All right.
Yes.
A few more beans. Okay, there we are. And let's look at that history.
Yep. Well, there's a bit more, but.
All right, so that doesn't look like exactly what we wanted. So what happened there? Do you know?
Yeah. So. At the moment, the app still needs some fixes, but I think it's reacting too sensitive to the.
All right, so the history is now awesome, but the rest worked really well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's see if there's any comments. So far, no comments, which is fine. All right, we are going to make the Allongé and the Adaptive profile, and the reason I'm going to do those two is because those are my go-tos for making, respectively, light roast watery drink. That's Allongé, and Adaptive would be an espresso. Now, an espresso, Adaptive is good from the medium to medium light range. Medium dark, I would say go and use Londinium for that. And the same thing with Allongé. The Allongé profile, if you taste significant caramel flavors, it's not the profile for you. It's going to extract too much. So what Allongé does is it's essentially a kind of turbo shot, but stretched longer. So turbo shots are great for when you haven't dialed in, when you've got beans that are really acidic. They do very fast flow and then they stop. And so you're generally always going to make a nice shot if you make a turbo shot, but you're not going to get everything out of the bean. Allongé is what I use everywhere when I am demoing. So for example, if I've got beans from DAC, from Amsterdam, those are beans that don't have defects in them. They're generally really fruity, really juicy beans. And the thing I like about the Allongé is I know it's going to extract all the other beans really well, but also I know I can just use the charts. And so I wanted to do a dialing in with Allongé first, because we can look at the chart and I can say that worked or why it didn't work. And if you get the chart right, Allongé is dialed in. So it isn't like, say, making an espresso with Adaptive where it looks good on the chart but doesn't taste good. And that can be the case. And there's lots of things there we're going to talk about there. But Allongé, if it looks good, it tastes as it's supposed to. So shall we? We're already there. Let's press the Allongé button. Is it there? It is not there. So let's go and choose Allongé. So Allongé is a very fast-flowing espresso. It's a 5-to-1 ratio. So quite a lot of water. We're going to have close to 100 mils in the cup. The strength is about twice that of filter coffee. And I much prefer it to filter coffee because it's much more open and it doesn't have the kind of muted, calm thing that filter has. So I'm not a filter guy. I like espresso, I like Allongé. So go ahead and let's grind and prepare and do our first one. I'm gonna get you a clear vessel.
Grind here?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and grind the 18 grams. Now we've done this kind of intentionally. This should be slightly too fine because this is the grind setting for another bean from Alchimiste. It's called Carraro, which is a touch darker. And being darker, it's a bit stickier. The lighter roast needs to be just a little bit finer, I think, but I'm not entirely sure. For espresso, I did go one notch on the niche finer with this lighter roast than on Carraro, and so I'm guessing that's going to be the case as well with Allongé, but we're going to see. So what I'd like to do is give you that. Let's make sure we're not touching the back.
120?
120 is an awful lot. I'm going to do 92. That's more my go-to.
Okay.
And let's go ahead. And the only thing to make sure is I have this huge vessel here. I want to make sure it's not touching the mirror in the back, which it isn't. Okay. All right, you're good. They can still see it. Now this is going to gush. I mean, this is with the niche. It's not too bad. If I were flat burrs, it would just look like a disastrous shot. Okay, but we have a lot of flow coming out. And you can hear the pump straining just a little bit, but actually this is pretty much bang on. I'm not having a problem with this. I see a little bit of spraying back here, but really it is coalescing. Okay. And it's going to be probably about 35 seconds. 32 seconds. All right, that was great. So what I'm usually aiming for Allongé is right around 30 to 35 seconds. So that was bang on. Let's get the top camera on that. What I want to show you is that there's crema on that, so which is kind of interesting because these are fairly light beans. And we're managing to get crema out of it because Allongé is pressurized. So even though there's a very high flow rate, this is not a channeling shot. So let's go back to the main camera. I can talk about the screen. So what I'm seeing here is a couple things. One is nicely dialed in shot. So 4.5 mils per second. There's this little dip here where it didn't quite manage it, but that's because it was reaching kind of higher pressures. But nonetheless, we were up around 8.5, 9 bars the whole time. Now, because this is a niche grinder and not a flat burr grinder, it's got more fines. You're going to generally have allongés that keep up in pressure, or they go down and then they flick back up again. The other thing I'm just going to notice here is we haven't calibrated the scale for this allongé. You see this little gap here, and so that means that the calibration for the scale isn't set for the allongé, and it could be, but I've been told that I go off topic too much, so I'm not going to go on to that right now. But I just wanted to point that out. So that looks quite okay. What I would say is I want to go a hair rather coarser, not finer. Okay, and the reason is I'm not so happy about the pressure not going down, because as the shot is extracting, giving us coffee, pressure is a function of puck resistance, and a whole bunch of coffee mass is coming out of the puck, about 20%. Okay? And so if you lose 20% of your coffee mass, you would expect this pressure going down. Now, it is somewhat a function of the fact that there are fines, but nonetheless, I'm not so happy about that. So let's go one niche step coarser and rerun the same shot. Okay. The other thing I'll say is, because this is not perfectly calibrated, we're doing about 3.8 mils per second, not 4 or 5. We can see that if you look at what the scale is doing. It's not a really big deal. I'm going to get cups for Mark and I to taste. But ideally, you would be running what's called the graphical flow calibrator plugin. That's from Damien, and if you had done that, there'd be a little thing here that told you what your calibration was. You could tap that and make these two things touch. And then now that they touch, the Allongé profile would be calibrated and would give you the flow it thinks it's giving you. So smell-wise, there is some fruit. There's like pineapple notes to this. Kind of like a toffee. It's quite good. I'm not give a sip to that. That's
okay.
I'm really happy with that, and it might be that going coarser gives us more fruit, but doesn't improve on that. Like nice, actually, mouthfeel.
It's very clean and very smooth, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one thing about Allongé is like the acidity is not off the charts, unlike espresso, and it's pretty open. Yeah, one thing. Shout out to Colin Arneson from Decon, because he suggested aerating, and we did a test. So we took, this was after Decon, it was like the after party. We made Allongé, split it in two, and he took a milk frother, you know, one of those things, and he aerated the Allongé, and it hugely opened it. We were really shocked, and we even let both of them come down to room temperature. And the one that had been aerated was hugely more open. So if you're making filter or Allongé drinks, if you happen to have one of those little battery-powered milk frothers, stick it in there. So you're ready to go? I'm gonna put that other one in there. Looks good. I haven't watched, so I'm hoping everything was right. Go for it. And what I'm gonna do is give us a larger cup so we can easily tell which is 1 and which is 2. So should get a bit more flow rate this time, and maybe a little bit less pressure. Okay, so quite a lot less pressure, going 1 coarser, maybe half coarser would have been better. Generally I want to be in this range here from 6 to 9 bar. But, so I think I'm going to have something that's a bit more acidic. It might finish a little bit faster. you can see actually the calibration is bang on with that pressure. So we really did get 4.5 mils per second there, and we basically were at 5 bar. And I did get a little bit of pressure decrease, which I'm happy about. And this is interesting. Let's go to that top camera. Check out the amount of crema, like a lot of crema. I'm a bit surprised about that because it was lower pressure. Don't know what to say about that. I do like using ceramic cups because it does cool it off. So a lot more thin. I'd say more fruity, but it is more watery. I think I prefer the first one.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do a third shot because it's only so much I can make you wait and sit and watch us make coffee. We lost a lot of mouthfeel.
It almost tastes like it's getting more and more like a filter coffee.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the thing, is the big difference between filter and Allongé is pressure. That's the big thing. And we had a whole lot less pressure here, 5 bar versus 8.5. But just go back to the small one again. I mean, on the nose, it's really, for me, it's quite open. Tropical fruity. And a lot more mouthfeel.
It's more, it has more tactile mouthfeel to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like filter coffee in that sense because I still have that mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And also a lot more intensity than filter would have. Mark has competed in coffee contests in Finland. Was it filter coffee? Is that what
that was,
doing?
That was filter coffee, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of contest was it?
So basically you basically pick your own beans and then you come up with your own recipe and then you make any types of either V60 or hand pour over coffee. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Explanations. Okay, that was helpful. Let's go and try and pull 2 adaptive shots, and I am going to go. To that. So I've gone 2 notches finer on that, and we'll see. It's not as different as I thought. So it used to be on my niche that I would go 4 steps to go from espresso to Allongé, and then 4 steps back. But I've got little markings on here as to where our espresso is, and I was only 2 away from espresso. So we will see. So yeah, and we're going to choose the adaptive. I'm going to press it while he's doing that. Okay, you've already done adaptive, which is great. Now I made an adaptive espresso a few minutes ago to milk it. The grind was a little bit coarse, and I'll show you the chart on that in a few minutes. We can compare the taste. All right. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. And go ahead. I'm not going to jinx the demo, but one of the features I showed 2 weeks ago is you can move the jug until that point, until the click. Okay, so there's this dripping stage here, and you can see it pre-infusion. There's dripping going in there. And the more coarse you are, the more you've got dripping. And then the pressure's going up. There's a bit of lag on the screen.
It's coming.
We can blame that on Google. Overall, that was a slightly coarse adaptive. And flavor-wise, we should be quite fruity. Yeah, let's get the top camera. That's great. You can see a bit more crema than the Allongé, but not much, because of course they're both pressurized. And so the thing about adaptive is it tries to adapt to your grind. And specifically, what does that mean? Specifically, it's from a paper by Jonathan Gagné. He had a theory that when you go up in pressure, whatever the peak pressure is that you hit, and here it was about 7.5 bar, the rest of the shot should have the same flow. So you can see here we've got green line, so it's going up in pressure. And adaptive gives up after 7 seconds. So that's what peak pressure means. It's like, how much pressure can I get in 7 seconds? Well, you got 7 seconds to make some pressure. Wherever you are, continue flat there. And the theory from that is whatever the flow rate is necessary to continue that, that peak pressure is a good way to go. And you can see we started to lose some pressure here, which is what you expect during extraction. And then it kind of flattened out. I think if we continued, it probably would have started going back up. And that's typical of less expensive grinders like the niche. They've got more fines. And with espresso especially, the pressure goes down and then the pressure goes back up again. So here it is. Let's give a taste. So first thing I'm noting is it's not worlds different on the nose from the Allongé. A lot of mouthfeel.
Wow.
Wow, what?
So the intensity is still very much there, but it feels like it retains the whole characteristic just in one mouth, just in one sip. Yeah.
It's really long in the mouth, and I'm actually surprised, given how light it is, like about 5 seconds, 8 seconds, I get kind of a caramelly light chocolate thing happening, but not from the front. And I feel like that might be not a roast product. That might not be a flavor, but actually a flavor of the bean. Because if I get chocolate right up front and nothing else, well, that's just roast. And really intense mouthfeel. Like it's quite thick, especially for a light roast.
And it also has a lot of layers. Like,
yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
Also, the acidity is really under control. I don't really like very acidic coffee. The problem is the lighter roasts, they're less soluble. Basically, the more you roast your coffee, the easier the coffee material comes out. That's basically how it works. And if something's less soluble, oh, we're going to lose the chart. Blame Google again. And if something's less soluble, to get the coffee material out, you have to do one of two approaches. You either have to give it more time touching the water, or you have to give it more water flow, like faster flowing water. And Allongé versus Adaptive are doing those two opposite strategies. So Allongé is doing a lot of water flow, a lot of fast moving water, because the lighter roast is less soluble. Whereas Adaptive, and when we get the chart back up, we'll see it, has a big pause. And that's what this is right here. Okay? And the really clever thing that's going on here, and I'll credit two people on this. I'll credit Damien and Scott Rao, who both kind of independently came up with the same idea, which was fast fill the group head, put water on the puck really quickly, and then cut the water. And what that does is it uses pressure to quickly saturate the whole puck. And the reason you want to do that is that you want the entire coffee material to have the same amount of time with the water contact. So if you put water on slowly, well, the top would have a lot of time with the water, but the bottom would have a lot less. So that's what Slayer shots are, which is why Slayer shots taste unevenly extracted. This sort of espresso and the Allongé, because the water touches the top and then the bottom maybe 1 or 2 seconds later, you get a really big extraction, because all of it's getting a lot of water contact time, but you also get a very even extraction. And I think that's why we're not getting much acidity, because that acidity could come from either not much water contact time or too much water contact time. And here it's just right. That's what's going on. Here is this big pause. Now you'll see it says Adaptive V2. That's something I put out a few months ago. We got these big grinders. And when I first put out Adaptive profile, it said Adaptive for medium roasts. And the reason I said that is because there were two assumptions I was making. One is you're drinking medium roast coffee, so chocolatey but not burnt. And then secondly, you're using a mid-range grinder like the niche. If you used Adaptive version 1 with this sort of grinder, it didn't work. What actually happened is during this fill time, and then the puck is supposed to be pressurized, water would just gush out. And the reason water would gush out is because Adaptive 1 kept pressure going here, a small amount of pressure, and these grinders, they don't have any fines, the water would just gush out. And so I worked on this for a while, and what I found, there's two changes I've made. So one is there's no more pressure here. So Adaptive V2 no longer pressurizes once the puck is saturated. And that means it can be used for very expensive flat burr grinders and less expensive conical burr grinders. Now, if you want to pressurize your puck, because that works better for the style of coffee, go with Londinium. So what I was really doing also with that change is making more of a difference between the Londinium profile, which fills the puck, pressurizes it, and keeps the pressure on. That's what Londinium does. With Adaptive, it fills it, puts the water on, and then holds the water, and if the pressure decreases, the pressure decreases. That's fine. So I thought it'd be useful to have the Londinium versus Adaptive diverge a bit more, because Londinium is not a great profile, I think, for light roasts. And then the other thing, and you can't really see it here, but if you've got a kind of slow flow rate here, there's a slight increase in flow rate during the extraction in this version 2. And that's because, again, these large burr grinders, again, in the words of Jonathan Gagne, they extract explosively. That's what he told me in a chat. And what he means by that is they just give up their coffee material really, really quickly. And that means the pressure just crashes. The problem then is if you follow his theory and you just have flat flow rate, then the pressure here would just crash as well. Okay. So that was another change in Adaptive V2, is the flow slowly increases a little bit to try and compensate for that. So I'm trying to make a profile that works almost as well as Adaptive V1 on niche grinders, but tremendously better on flat burr grinders, especially since so many of you are getting flat burr grinders. Not as big as that, but other ones. I think what I'd like to do is go a hair finer. Mm-hmm. I don't think, let's go just a half setting.
Okay.
Because we're basically there. What I'd like is I would like this pressure to come up to sort of the 9 range, and I'd like it, and it's going to also, having a finer grind is going to make this flow rate come down, because here it is at 3.5 mils per second, which is quite fast. So if I fine the grind a little bit, a couple things will happen. I'll have less dripping here. Okay, that's what that's telling me here. 16 grams of dripping is that's a lot. That might be appropriate. You might like the flavor if it's a lighter roast. But if this were a touch darker, I'd want a whole lot less. I'd love to get this down to sort of 8 grams. 8 grams is kind of the top end for me of dripping and still having it be traditional espresso. Go ahead and grind our last dose. So I'm hoping what's going to happen, this is all going to look about the same. It's going to take the same amount of time to fill and decrease. We might lose a little bit less pressure because we're a little bit finer. I would expect that to happen, so this curve might not be quite as steep. And then when we rise, we'll hopefully rise to a slightly higher pressure. The flow rate will come down, and the shot time will hopefully be like 26, 28 seconds, something like that. And we might see this pressure curve go down, and it might start to go back up again because of the fines in that cup. And then taste-wise, I'm hoping we're going to have something that's a bit thicker in the mouth. Yeah, go ahead. And a bit thicker in the mouth, but probably a bit less fruity as well. And for these beans, this may not be an improvement. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the shot we just pulled. It was really yummy. Okay, so here's our dripping that we're tracking here. Okay. Okay, and indeed we only had 6 grams of dripping instead of the 18 on the previous one. However, sad face, probably that's puck prep. there is a variation on puck prep, and you can see our flow rate went even higher here. So I'm going to weigh you another 18 grams. All right, and I want to try that because you definitely went finer, not coarser, right?
This only have,
Yeah, you went finer this way, right?
No, did
you go coarser or finer?
I go coarser.
I wanted to go finer.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what happened when we went coarser, is we dropped from about 7.5 bar to 6. So go a whole notch now, finer.
Okay.
From where you are. Okay, that looks good. And hopefully we'll go up there. So yeah, in fact, what happened is we're at 3.5 mils per second on the last one, and now we're almost at 4. We didn't maintain that much pressure. We didn't hit much pressure here, and we lost it all because we're even coarser. And the other thing is, looking at the top camera, hopefully you can see even a little less crema on there because there's less pressure. Okay. I'm going to punish you by making you taste this with me. So it's a bit more acidic on the nose, but it's, again, not ruined. That is too acidic for me. Yeah. I think someone who likes acidity, would be into that. Not me.
The previous shot is definitely more balanced. Yeah.
All right, I will let you do your thing. So it was not puck prep, it was going coarser instead of finer. Good. Mark just did a flush, which is totally fine. Two things I would just say about that. One is, if you're going to do a flush, I would probably also take a towel and just wipe off the shower screen underneath, which is what he's doing right now. And the other, and it's totally fine, he didn't do anything bad, is you don't want to do a flush that's too long, like 10 seconds be the kind of max. And the reason is that flushes are really quite high flow rate, and if the D1 can't keep up, and you do like a 20, 30 second long flush, you've just cooled off your group head. And your next shot's not gonna taste great because you've cooled off your group head. So that's one of the reasons why this has 3, 5, 10, and 15 seconds as the flush times to try and dissuade you from going to the bigger numbers. And that you just did a 5-second flush, which is fine. You got one?
Yep.
Okay. And this is probably going to be our last espresso of the day, unless there's any questions. We're going to give you our tasting notes, explain the chart, and then be off. Okay, so right away, you can hear it's quite different. It's gone to much higher pressure during this time, and you also see it's not dropping the pressure as much, and a lot less drippings. Now it might be actually too fine. That's how that is, right? So we didn't lose that much pressure there. We went up to very high there, and now we are losing a lot of pressure as the shot extracts, but it's gonna run a bit too long. Yeah. So here, what I would expect, so here's our fines kicking in and building up pressure again. That's what's going on there. That's the niche, that sort of telltale sign of the niche or similar grinders. And flavor-wise, I'm going to expect this to be a bit muted. This is probably going to be a nice espresso if I wanted to add milk to it, because I'm going to have less fruity notes. I'm also going to have probably less acidity, more of that cocoa flavor. And on the nose, it's just a lot less interesting. It's closed. Still a lot of acidity. Go ahead. It's, now for me, it's okay.
It's way more, it tastes way more muted than,
Yep.
than the first one that we did actually.
Let's go back to, I think it's this one here, which was the one, it hit 7.5 bar. And that's why I said with adaptive, you don't have to hit 9 bar. Somewhere between 6 to 9 is quite nice. And I think, let's see if we can go back there. Okay. So there is the shot that we thought tasted good, and you can see it peaked at 7.5, and it didn't crash. So that's quite good puck prep. If it crashes, that could be a puck prep issue. The shot time was a little fast, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That just means it's going to accentuate its fruity characteristics. Flow rate was on the high end, but again, this is a light roast. So yeah, way more balanced. Makes the bean really shine. Well, that's it for today. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. There's a bunch of 4-day weeks coming up. And I don't know if they're Mondays or Friday holidays. So I don't know. I'll just announce them as I know we can do them. Bye-bye.